Welcome to Gospel Tangents, the best source for Mormon history, science, and theology, and first daily Mormon history podcast. I'm Rick Bennett. In my final presentation of the Firm Foundation Conference, we're going to talk about Asian, African, and New World geography theories of the Book of Mormon. So you won't want to miss this conversation. I'll even give my opinion about the Heartland, and you'll see how the people reacted to that. So you won't want to miss this conversation. Check it out. I will just mention a couple of other things here on this map. You'll notice here around India, there's a little island there. That's the island of Sri Lanka. Just keep that in mind. As we continue on the second map, you can see that it goes down the Malay Peninsula. Those are two other geography theories that we're going to discuss now. So it is interesting if you're a Meso proponent and you think they went west. Here is some interesting things. This is a Sri Lanka map. I didn't even know where Sri Lanka was, but it's off the southern tip of India. My friend Casey Kern, I'll be talking about him in a second. Me and Casey, we are birds of a feather. We love to talk about all the different geography theories. We're not a proponent of any specific one. We just like learning about them. And I asked Casey where he got Sri Lanka, and it was a comment on a blog. You can see the link up at the top. And basically, the commenter wrote that Ceylon, which is today known as Sri Lanka, is just southeast of the Arabian Sea, north part of the Indian Ocean. And if the Lehites traveled along the coast, which is what most people think the ancient sailors did, they could not have missed it. By looking at Google Earth, one can see a narrow bridge of islands between Sri Lanka and India. That bridge is called Rama's Bridge, like Kamora, Rama. It kind of sounds the same. Anyway, so on this next slide here, there's another quote there from Wikipedia. Casey actually has a website that I highly recommend because it's not just Book of Mormon geography theories. It's all about the Book of Mormon, and he's got some really wonderful note-taking. So it's bookofmormon.online, so there's no .com or .org or anything. It's bookofmormon.online, and he's created a better map than I did with Google. You can see there, he's got a narrow neck of land in between India and Sri Lanka. So Sri Lanka is kind of the land of Zarahemla. India is the land bountiful and the land desolation. So those are the pros, the cons. The only reference I know about is on a blog. There are no known proponents except for the person who wrote that comment. There's very few details. But if you want to learn a little bit more, I've got a link to Casey Kern's website, and you can learn a little bit more there. The Malay theory, this is number 4. This is my personal favorite. Dr. Ralph Olson, unfortunately, he's passed away. He taught at Montana State University, I believe. And one of the things that's interesting about the Malay Peninsula, I'm going to show you what it looks like. It's a north-south peninsula. So if you're looking at an internal theory, it's great for that. Casey Kern actually did a 4-part review at the Wheaton Terrace blog. I've got a link there. And so the Malay Peninsula could include lands of modern-day Thailand, Malaysia, Burma. Now, I know a lot of people think this one's really far-fetched, and I would agree, it is very far-fetched. But when you look at things like anachronisms, gold, barley, horses, elephants, swords, they've got it all. Now, of course, the big question is, well, how did it get to America? And, you know, if you look at what Mormon says, or Moroni says, he traveled for 30 years after the final battle. Well, in 30 years, you can go pretty much anywhere in the world. Now, the question would be, well, if he did that, why didn't he? Well, and, you know, maybe he's a sailor, he's on a boat, he doesn't have time to ride on plates. But anyway, so as far as a lot of the anachronisms that critics like to point out about the Book of Mormon, Malay really fits it, I would say, better than any other theory. It's not America. I will tell you that Thailand apparently does mean land of the free. Ralph says that it's never been conquered by a European nation. And so, anyway, I know it's far-fetched, but it's a fun theory for those who like to look at these things. And I love to look at these things. You can download his first version of the theory at my website. I've got a link there. Brant Gardner did a rebuttal of this, and of course he doesn't like it. So I'll just let you know that right off the bat. Interesting thing, Prose, it supports both a boat migration and a land migration. I've mentioned some of these already. There's a movie or a documentary called Quest for the Lost Tribes. It's by he likes to call himself an atheist Jew named Simcha Yakubovich. He actually believes that the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh ended up in the Malay Peninsula. Completely unrelated to Ralph Olson. I actually called Ralph on the phone. I was like, Ralph, can you believe this? So there is, I don't know that they've done a lot of DNA tests yet to confirm that, but that's really interesting. Cons, it's definitely unusual. Book of Mormon and early church leaders said that it was about the inhabitants of this continent, meaning the American continent. Olson counters with, and from the source from whence they came. So that's kind of interesting there. And then there's little support among scholars, so I'll chalk that up as another con. The African theory. This one's really funny. I just got an email from Casey a day or two ago, and he said, I don't even like to consider this an actual theory because it is like, where's the land bountiful? Where's the narrow neck of land? Basically, it's a guy named Mbe Melican. He's not even a member of the church. He claimed that he took the missionary discussions in the temple, so that kind of explains to you his knowledge of Mormonism. Clearly that didn't happen. But he has a couple of books out, one called The African Bible. I think this is the first and second edition. Basically what he's done is he's marked up the Book of Mormon, and then he's been like, oh, and this represents Ethiopia, and this is Eritrea, or whatever. Casey promised me he was going to put it on his website because he actually just found another comment that had a few more details. There is a preview of his book, 80 Reasons Why the Book of Mormon is an African Bible. I've got a link there to the preview. You can also buy it at Amazon. And there is a rebuttal from BYU, and I've got a link there. Prose, Eritrea, and Ethiopia, certainly a much closer to Egypt, and obviously the trip would have been a lot easier to go to Africa. There is a tradition in Ethiopia about the Queen of Sheba being from there, and they actually say that they have the Ark of the Covenant. They won't let anybody look at it. But so, there is kind of a little bit of plausibility there. The other thing, this is kind of both a pro and a con. I put it in the pros. There is a DNA link to a Lemba tribe in South Africa that date to about 600 BC. But they've actually done a link, and it's called the Lemba tribe. They have the Jewish gene, for lack of a better word. It's called the Cohen haplotype. They did a DNA test. These people, they still wear the yarmulkes, and they practice an old-style Jewish religion. They are as black can be. It does explain the skin of blackness. It makes much more sense that the Lamanites mingled with Africans. The cons of this theory, Mbe Melican, not a scholar, not even a Latter-day Saint. He seems completely unaware of LDS scholarship on geography. The language connections are specious. Once again, same with Malay. How did the plates get to America? Doesn't really have a good answer for that. Let's move on to New World geography. The hemispheric model, this is probably what, if you even ask people who don't come to conferences like this, people who aren't as plugged in as you guys, they probably still think that North America is the land northward, South America is the land southward. This is pretty much what early members always thought. The cons, the distances just don't match for a continental hemispheric model. We've got DNA problems that I've mentioned earlier. The Baja theory, number 7. This is a photo of David Rosenval, and I interviewed him, I think it was back in 2016, and he believes that the Baja California Peninsula, once again, north-south. I know you guys don't believe in Sorensen's internal map, but it matches the map quite well. It's north-south. He says the climate is similar to the Mediterranean. It's compatible with the Mesoamerican theory. He thinks that they could have migrated to Mexico, possibly. Peninsula matches, distances match, no known anachronisms. Well, I don't know if I would agree with that. A lot of his horses and elephants are prehistoric. You know, he talks about the La Brea tar pits. The problem is those are 10 to 20,000 years ago, so they don't match Lehi's time period. It has DNA problems. Once again, how did the plates get to New York? Would have been very hard from, you're going coast to coast. It has some growing support among scholars, but, Brant Gardner mentioned that the populations mentioned in the Book of Mormons just don't exist in the Baja Peninsula. So, once again, pros and cons. Number 8, the New York Great Lakes theory. One of the interesting things about this theory, if you look at the Great Lakes, those are huge. I mean, they're the largest lakes in the world. In Israel, we call the Sea of Galilee, which is way smaller than even the smallest Great Lakes, a sea. And so if you look at the Great Lakes as seas, then you can say, well, these are the sea north, the sea south, east, east, and west. Casey actually has a little bit better map on his Book of Mormon online for the New York theory. There were some reviews done back in 2008, so they're a little bit dated. I'm just going to jump into the pros and cons. It's not a north-south peninsula. There are several candidates for the narrow neck of land in between the Great Lakes. Lakes could reasonably construed as seas. Limited geography is much more appropriate. It's very near the Hill Cumorah, so that's definitely a pro. I know that's a big deal with Heartlanders. Cons, it has DNA problems, just like all of the New World theories. Elephants, horses, plants are not found there. It's not scholarly at all. The Iroquois don't date to the right time period. I know this is an issue with Heartlanders. The Book of Mormon never mentions snow. You guys, that doesn't bother you, but it bothers a lot of other people. So the climate doesn't really seem to match. Moving on, this is a new theory I just found out a few months ago, the Delmarva Peninsula. Got a link to the website there. I'm not super familiar with this one, but Delmarva stands for Delaware, Maryland, Virginia. So you can see that peninsula right across there from Washington, D.C., Baltimore area. So once again, it's a peninsula. North-south, it works very well if you believe in a limited geography theory. This one actually kind of overlaps with Heartland a little bit. So the land northward kind of goes into the Ohio, New York area. So it kind of overlaps a little bit, but they've got the Delmarva Peninsula down there. Very near the Hill Cumorah. Cons, just like all the American theories, DNA problems, elephants, horses, plants. Very small circle of proponents. It needs more research. I believe this one was just, I talked to a woman who likes this theory, and she said it was first proposed in 1994, so it's relatively new. And anyway, number 10, the South American theory. This is actually the first Book of Mormon geography theory that I was ever exposed to. Venice Prittis back in 1975, and also Arthur Cocahan's model. You can see here I've got a photo of their book cover. You can see that South America, most of it is completely underwater. If you look at the west coast, you've got a north-south peninsula with a narrow neck of land. The idea with this theory is that the Amazon River, I mean, a lot of that land that's in blue that you can see is below sea level. So it seems very plausible that the Amazon River flooded that whole area. They believe that the Incas were the Lehites. Two people who like this theory, George Potter and Dowdell, although Dell just recently passed away. His son's kind of taken over for that. Venice Prittis, she claims that this was underwater, which is true, but it was 18 million years ago, so your timeline's a little bit off. Okay? So that's a big problem. Similar climate to the Mediterranean. They like to say that the seeds that Lehi brought with them grew. I think I've mentioned all that stuff. No steel, no iron. Are the horses alpacas? I will say that regarding iron ore, they did use iron ore in paint, but they didn't use it to make swords in South America. So that's kind of interesting. The Heartland theory, finally, saving the best for not quite last. Okay, I'm hustling. And so I'm not going to go over this one because you guys know this one. I am going to talk a little bit about the pros and cons. I've talked a little bit about DNA. Got elephant problems. This seems to be what Joseph Smith had in mind with the mound builder myths. So anyway, you guys know about this one. I'm not going to talk about that one too much. Mesoamerican. This is kind of the granddaddy of them all. It's who everybody measures it themselves up against. The Mesoamerican model. Two main theories. You've got the one on the top there, that's Sorensen's model. The one on the bottom is George, I'm not remembering his last name. Garth Norman, excuse me. Garth Norman's version. They switched the Grijalva and the Usumacinta River. Sorensen has a couple of books there. You can purchase those. Brant Garden did a review. You can also purchase the DVD. It's a really nice DVD. Pros and cons. I think you'll notice a lot of the pros and cons are the same with a lot of these theories because they all have the same problems. Yucatan Peninsula, this is one I just learned about 2 weeks ago. I did mention at the beginning, you can see instead of being down Mesoamerica, Guatemala, it's the Yucatan Peninsula. Joseph Smith did mention that some ruins were Lamanite ruins on the Yucatan. One of the big problems is it's one of the most seismically stable areas of Central America, so it's hard to get a lot of the destruction. I've mentioned those. I know I'm running out of time. Panama, this is one of the newest theories. Once again, I got this from Casey Kern. I don't know much about it. It's the newest theory I've encountered. It's clearly not a north-south peninsula, so that's got a problem. Same pros and cons apply. And then the least interesting theory, I saved the worst for last. Joseph made it up. So anyway, that's my presentation. I went as fast as I could, and I'd be happy to share this, except for the videos, with anybody who's interested in this. So appreciate Rod for letting me speak. I hope you enjoyed our conversation about the different geography theories. A lot of fun to do, and one of my favorite topics. So anyway, as you can see, I tried to be fair to all the theories. They all have strengths. They all have weaknesses. So in our next conversation, I'm excited to talk to George Potter again. This time, we're going to talk about Mount Sinai. Is it in Arabia?
Well, yeah, it's a place now where you can get visas to go into Saudi Arabia. We can get visas for people. We can go in. And where we had to go through just desert wadis, jeep trails to try to find this mountain. And I'll explain maybe later how we found it. Today there's a paved road takes you right there. And they have taken down the antiquities fences. You can walk in, you can see the artifacts that are there. And why people believe it's Mount Sinai.
If you'd like to hear the entire interview uncut, subscribe on either Patreon or at gospeltangents.com. For just $5 a month, you can hear the entire audio uninterrupted. On our $10 tier, if you would like to see the whole video, you can see that either on youtube.com/gospeltangents, or I've got a special Facebook group devoted for full videos. So subscribe at gospeltangents.com and sign up for just $10 a month. For $20 a month, if you'd like to get some bonus content, maybe some of the stuff that ended up on the cutting room floor, you can sign up for that. And then if you'd like to talk to me for $100 a month, we'll do a monthly phone call on something like Zoom, and you can ask me anything you want. So thanks again. Also, don't forget about the merch, mugs, t-shirts, hats, things like that. I'm trying to get the ties up there. Hopefully I can get up there. And thanks again for watching Gospel Tangents. And click here for some more videos.